So now it's somebody else's turn to say something.
Rabbi, I have a question.
At your own risk. But you need to be on the camera.
That was my question. Why two phones? What does that symbolize?
Oh, it's Kabbalistic. If you buy that, I got a few more things to sell you. This is a recorder and this is a broadcaster. Why? Because that's the people who... I have a website, that I'm shamelessly promoting, as you probably are aware, called Inside Chassidus, in case Chas v'Shalom you missed it, yeah? So this is being done live, this, and this is recording it. Why you need two? Because the quality of the online recording is So that's why I got two phones. Now the question is, why do I have two phones and not two cameras? But that's a really Kabbalistic question, because I don't know the answer. But it works. Baruch Hashem. I have this website, I teach Chassidus, and people help me.
So how does your website tie in with this Kislev?
My website is all about teaching Chassidus. You see, the honest truth is, I'm much more teacher than lecturer and speaker and even Farbrengen. I love to teach, and I teach Chassidus. Chassidus Chabad is actually an involved philosophy. It's a brilliant commentary on Jewish philosophy and Jewish mysticism. Again, I don't know how much you understand, but the Jewish people have two theological poles. The non-mystical theological pole, which is sort of headed by Rambam and people like that, Ibn Ezra, Ralbag and others, and the mystical theological pole, which is headed by the Zohar and then the Arizal Lurian Kabbalah, they call it, and Ramak and others. Chassidus, the Baal Shem Tov, the Alter Rebbe, founder of Chabad, really created a synthesis. They wanted to create a theology that doesn't teach one at the expense of the other, and they found brilliant ways of synthesizing them. And it's scholarship. It's actually boring learning for geeks, and I'm a geek, and that's what I do. So I travel and I tell stories, and I make people stand and dance. It's amazing. It's amazing. This is a Farbrengen. If you read about this, we just participated in a real Farbrengen. It's not so complicated. We just got together and we said a little l'chaim, and we got comfortable enough to stand up and dance in the middle of the night on a Tuesday in Miami Beach. It's pretty cool. It's pretty crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't get caught. You know what doing that. But listen, we all danced. Baruch Hashem for that. We participated in this event. But I like to teach Chassidus. So my website has over 10,000 classes. And I teach a lot of good stuff. Check me out. There's a lot. It's not so hard to navigate. So Yotzes Kislev is all about this. The Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Zalman of Liadi, whose day this is. He was redeemed from prison, and we celebrate his redemption, and he wants us to celebrate his redemption. I heard that he says that anybody who participates in his joy, he's going to make sure that the doors of heaven are open. This is a great opportunity. The Alter Rebbe said, you get together on my birthday, my Chag HaGeula, the day of my redemption, and you say L'chaim, and you sing a Chassidic song, and you wish each other good things. I will assure you that the gates of heaven will be open, and the Eibusher should be Malim Mishalis Levav Kol Echad Ve'echas MiYisrael L'Teva V'Levracha L'Teva Dir V'Digla. Hashem should give us all the things that we need, that we want. Okay? L'chaim. But this is a special opportunity. But I just want you to understand that Rabbi Zalman was a brilliant intellectual, and I'm not alcohol, by the way. He created a form for the teaching of mysticism which is very original. He used real philosophy, laws of logic, to explain mysticism, and he really is unique. And his teachings are brilliant. And we have 7 generations, 7 rabbis of Chabad, 7 successive generations, a father, a son, a grandson, and a great-grandson, a great-great-grandson, till our Rebbe, who have been teaching Chabad, which is, amongst other things, an insight into mysticism / philosophy of the Jewish people, and enlightens it and makes us understandable to an overt lay person. That's my business. That's what I do. I tried to teach it and tried to explain it, to make it to people, bring it to people. So the story was that when he was incarcerated, this is the story, this is what the rabbi wants me to say, that when he was incarcerated, he was visited by his holy masters. The Alter Rebbe sat in a little tiny cell, and two rabbis came to see him. Problem is, these rabbis had passed away some decades before. They were his teachers. The Holy Maggid passed away 36 years before. The Baal Shem Tov passed away 49 years before, something to that effect. And they came to see him. It was a spiritual experience. And he said to his teachers, why am I sitting in jail? What am I doing here? So they said to him, you're sitting in jail because you're teaching too much. You're taking this very deep mystical stuff. You're embodying it in a form of philosophy, making it available to ordinary people. And upstairs there's a lot of noise. So the Alter Rebbe says, okay, I'll stop. He said, no. If you survive this, only do more. And that's exactly what happened. So after he came out of jail, it was the last period of his life, last 10 to 12 years of his life, he actually adopted a whole new dimension of interpreting Chabad. And he's the father of Chassidus Chabad, no doubt about it. The Alter Rebbe is the father of everything we study and learn, that I teach, that I make a living doing. So it's a very important day for him, for us. It's interesting. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. You know of Lag BaOmer? You know of Lag BaOmer? Who doesn't know of Lag BaOmer, right? What's Lag BaOmer? What's Lag BaOmer? What's Lag BaOmer? Trees. Lag BaOmer is fire. Right? Lag BaOmer is the day that a really holy Kabbalist who lived 18 centuries ago died. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lived in the 2nd century. He passed away, and people over the world, religious and irreligious, whatever, Sfardim, Ashkenazim, Chassidim, Misnagdim, they get together and they make a bonfire, they sing songs and they roast marshmallows. Here's the thing. If we knew anything about this holy man, Rab Shimon, we would know that we have nothing in common with him. He was so holy, and he was so pure, and he was so brilliant. And somehow, we all relate to him. The holiest rabbis, who have the least to do with the common person, have the broadest appeal. And that's part of the secret of Chassidus. Big tzaddikim. I mean, has anybody in this room met the Rebbe? Has anybody in this room met the Rebbe? Rabbi Schneers. Has anybody in this room met the Rebbe? You've met the Rebbe. Okay. I don't know how old you were. You were an adult, you were a child. How old were you? Huh?
I was a kid.
You were a child.
Yeah.
You remember the Rebbe, but you didn't get $1 from the Rebbe.
I did get.
You probably got $1. Okay, I grew up in Crown Heights. I grew up at his feet. The thing that people miss about this rabbi was, he was a serious Jew. This was a man who calculated every minute of his life, didn't waste a second. He was so intense in how he lived. And somehow we all think he's cool. No, seriously, think about it. You watch films of the Rebbe, you see how every single motion of his is measured. He doesn't waste a second. Doesn't even move his hands unnecessarily. And we in our behavioral lives have nothing in common with him, nothing. But somehow the really, really great rabbis, even children can relate. You know Adin Steinsaltz? You know what Adin Steinsaltz was? Adin Even Yisrael? You know what that is, Adin Steinsaltz? Adin Steinsaltz in the 70s, the New Yorker did an expose on Adin Steinsaltz, and some professor said that a mind like his comes into the world once in 1,000 years. Steinsaltz was an unbelievable genius. And he dedicated his life to teaching Torah. He wrote a complete commentary on the Talmud, and he was an incredible... He wrote over 300 books, over 300 volumes. He was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant man. And he was very close to the Rebbe. And one of the things that really got him was he would come to 7-7, and he was this really great intellectual. And all around the Rebbe, and I mean literally around the Rebbe, are little kids. They're this close to him. And there's just a sea of them. And the Rebbe is comfortable with the children are comfortable with the Rebbe. They have a common language, even though they have nothing in common. He, as an intellectual, said, get the little kids away from me. They're nudges, they're disturbing. You know, one of the children at a Farbrengen, he tied the Rebbe's shoelaces together. One shoe to the other shoe. You understand? He was busy, he was bored. So that's when they said, okay, so the kids can't go under the table. But they would sit, the Rebbe had no, because they would be under the table, and one of the kids, the Rebbe got up to walk. He was his feet were shackled, because some kid tied his shoelaces together. And the Rebbe was not going to bend down in public and undo his shoelaces. I don't know the end of that story. So they didn't let the kids, but they sat all around him, and he was so comfortable. The really holiest of holy, somehow, we all relate to. And that's a big piece of Chassidus. One of the biggest parts of the Hasidic culture is the involvement of the regular person, just me and you, and a holy man. That's why people get on a plane and they travel to New York and they go to the Rebbe's resting place. You come there and there are so many people. And what are they doing here? Why are they here today? And then you discover there are always this many people. All types, not necessarily religious, certainly not Chabad. They all somehow relate to this rabbi, because he was so incredibly holy that he was able to speak to every Jew, to reach every Jew, to touch every Jew, no matter where they were. And that's why we're Chassidim. I'm spoiled. I'm really spoiled. I was born in Crown Heights. I grew up in Crown Heights. As a child, my brother and I would go to 770, which is the Rebbe's shul, and my father would teach a lecture in some other synagogue to a group of people. My brother and I would go to 770, and we'd stand behind the Rebbe. It was in the summertime. The only two kids behind the Rebbe. All the other kids were in camp. And they would turn around and look at us. And we looked at him. And we thought it was perfectly normal. And now, more than close to 50 years on, my brother and I reflect back at those moments and we say, how much did it give us? I'll tell you a story that I don't even remember, okay? I'm eventually going to remember it. I'm going to tell myself the story so many times. When I was 3 years old, so you do a haircut, right? Chassidim do a haircut, and Sfadim do a haircut. So you don't cut your hair till 3, and then you cut your hair, and you leave a yama kippah, and the payas, the sideburns are very important, and you start wearing tzitzis. So in those days, this is 1968. I was born in 65. So in 68 I turned 3. So you would go over to the Rebbe by Farbrengen, by a gathering just like this, except that there were not 40 people there. There were 400 people there, or 1,000 people there. And you'd put down a bottle of vodka, and you'd walk up to the Rebbe, he'd pour a little bit into his own glass, then he'd give you some, and then you would say l'chaim, and you took it with you. And then when you made your party, you had wine, alcohol to distribute. So my father took me with him. I was 3 years old. And the Rebbe, without hesitation, gave me a bunch of vodka. I don't know how many 3-year-olds he gave vodka. Anyway, I don't remember this, but like I said, I'm going to tell this story enough times till I remember it. I drank it and spit it right back in the Rebbe's face. My father said I was so embarrassed, and the Rebbe thought it was the funniest thing in the world. And I wonder, I really, honestly, I wonder how much of who I am is a reflection of these interactions, these little stories, these simple stories. The Rebbe, before I was born, my parents visited the Rebbe, and the Rebbe referred to me as him. And they didn't do sonograms, him. The Rebbe knew stuff, and he sometimes shared. And those of us who were fortunate and grew up near him, we basked in his light. We saw what it means to work so unbelievably hard, to never rest. And to just love the Rebbe. What he accomplished in his lifetime, it's impossible to understand how much this man did. He carried so much responsibility. And he had time for a 3-year-old to give him vodka. I've asked people who are in the know if the Rebbe was in the habit of giving 3-year-olds alcohol. I wonder, was it a normal thing? With a 3-year-old. And my father just, the Rebbe, he could have said to the Rebbe, I don't know, this is going to go down, but the Rebbe gave you mashke, so you drank it. I gave it right back. And the Rebbe thought it was the funniest thing in the world. My father didn't think it was so funny. But everybody else in shul thought it was funny. So that's my story. Connection to a tzaddik. And that's why people from here and from overseas travel to Queens, go to the Rebbe, and they stand there, and they try to feel his spirit. And we pray to God. We pray to God for the things that we need. To give us health and success and wisdom and grown-upness. What can I tell you? It really is true that life is simple, if we allow it to be simple. But there's so much temptation into complicating life And we so often forget how expensive that complexity is. What we have to give to get it. And if we could figure out how to simplify our lives, honestly, we will be chassidim. That's what a chassid is. A chassid is a Jew, a human being on this earth who never forgot what's the most important thing. It's his wife, it's his family, it's his community, it's Torah, it's mitzvahs, it's wisdom, it's kindness, it's responsibility, it's hard work. That's really what it comes down to. And if we succeed in applying those values to our lives, and I say this a lot, and I truly believe it. You need to understand, my father's an immigrant. Because he's an immigrant, I love America. That's the way it works. My kids can already hate America, but I was brainwashed. My father came to this country at the age of 15. My father was born in the Soviet Union. My father remembers the bombardment of Moscow. My father spent the war years in Siberia. My father went through a lot of stuff that I can't even fathom. And he loves this country. When I was a little child, he would lecture me on freedom. What was he talking about? He would walk the shul on Shabbos. He's talking to me about freedom. Do me a favor, I don't know what you're talking. But he raised me how to love this country. And one of the things about Americans, I think there's two things about Americans that are very special. Number one, I think Americans really want to be good. We care to be good. We don't care to be called good, we care to be good. A lot of us are very stupid, so we can come up with very convoluted ways of being good. But we care, Americans want to be good. I think it's in their nature. It's not the same in Europe. That's number one. And number two, Americans are never too old to change. 70, 75, 80, I can still start putting on film. I can still start to keep Shabbos. I'm going to say it straight, start to be nice to my wife. After whatever number of years of marriage. Really, I could, if I decide to. And I don't expect her to do it first. I can fix what I can fix, she can fix what she can fix. A lot of times we have relationships with our spouses, with our parents, and with our children that they're in a bad pattern. They're in a bad pattern. And this is our choreography. Again, I teach teenagers. So I'm always coming up with metaphor. So one of my metaphors, which is a very realistic metaphor, is a cheetah. You know what a cheetah is? A cheetah is a slender little cat that's very, very tall. It's got lungs the size of I don't know what. But he's a very delicate animal. A cheetah is not a leopard. He's not tough. And cheetahs hunt. They can sprint for, half a mile. At 60 miles an hour. It's incredible how fast they can move. And they hunt down gazelle. Sometimes they'll hunt larger prey if they're hunting in pairs, whatever the particulars are. But the way a cheetah hunts is he chases down the gazelle, the antelope, and he takes his right paw, slaps the animal down. The animal flips over. The cheetah pounces on the animal, grabs it by the throat. The animal's laying on the ground. His legs are flailing, and he suffocates it. What would happen if one of these antelope, instead of running away, would turn around and look at the cheetah and say, "I dare you to kill me"? The dance is over. The cheetah the prey animal and the predatory animal are in a dance. That's how it's described by behavioral scientists. And both animals need to play their part. If the prey animal stops running away, the cheetah can't kill. That's why you find situations where lions are looking after a little baby gazelle. It's the funniest thing. Because the gazelle's not running away, the lion doesn't run after it. It doesn't know what to do, so it licks its little face and doesn't know what to do about giving it milk or whatever the particulars are. But you see this happen all the time, because in order for the hunt to work, both animals have to play their part. And relationships are the same way. Probably one of the hardest things in America, maybe the hardest thing in America, is our relationship with our parents. Kibbud aveim, kabed es avicha v'esimecha, which is one of the 10 Commandments. Honor thy mother and thy father is so difficult for us. It's so difficult for everybody. And I understand it. All of us got a list of grievances. There's nobody in the world that we're more angry with than our parents. But you know what else? No one else in the world that loves us as much. No one else in the world is going to take all this crap. That's why we can afford to be grievous, because they take it. And if we could say, I'm 40 years old, I'm 45 years old, I'm not complaining to my parents anymore what happened when I was 16 and they missed hockey practice. I'm just going to love them because they're not here forever, and I'm just going to be... And then you come home to your parents and you're nice and sweet, and they're waiting for you to bring up some old grievance, and you don't bring it up, and they say, Michael, what's going on? Nothing's going on. You're not yourself today. He said, why? You didn't insult me. Ma, I'm not insulting you anymore. Oh, come on, Michael. If you don't insult me, what kind of relationship are we going to have? I'm going to kiss you on both cheeks. That's my relationship with you. Yeah, but... and then, God forbid, your mother does what she does best, right? She tells you that you're overweight and you're eating too much, and then, of course, she feeds you. You know? So these are patterns that we fall into with our parents, with our children, and most of all, the person closest to us in the world, our spouse, the person we love the most. And if there's a lesson we could take from any Farbrengen, is that we're not stuck. We're stuck if we allow ourselves to be stuck. Chassidus says we all have a soul. The worst of us has a soul. The people. I have a daughter who works for an organization called Aleph, which is actually anchored or initiated in Miami Beach here in Florida, where they're looking after people in prison, some of whom are not in prison for you know what I'm saying, for doing jaywalking, but for rather criminal. And the whole idea is they advocate for prisoners. They're people, and they need to be given opportunity to live their lives and to be given what they call second chances. Obviously, you're not going to give them permission to hurt anybody, but this is part of the philosophy, you know. Find the good in everybody and bring it to the fore. And the first of that is finding the good in ourselves. Really, finding the good in me. I know me. I know what's wrong with me. I know a lot of things that are wrong with me. Believe me, a longer list than you want to hear. Just ask I'll tell you if you have a moment of truth. And then you say, you know what, I'm not repeating that behavior. I'm going to stop it. And you could. It's hard. It's very, very hard. But it's possible. And then I'll say, then you're a chassid in a small way. If every person, let's just say this, okay, I don't know how many of you have parents that are alive. If you could decide that your relation, and your mother is old and obnoxious, and she criticizes you the minute you walk through the door and every time you call, and you say, she's an old lady, and I'm just going to love her, and I'm going to take it. You'll be happier, she won't know what to do. She won't know what to do, and you'll be a better person. It's a simple thing. And the same is true in our relationship with our spouse, and the same is true in our relationship with our children. And I think this is one of the gifts of American civilization. I believe these two statements to be true. A, Americans really want to be good. And B, Americans are never too old to change. So, here's an opportunity. It's a Farbrengen. Okay, l'chaim everybody. L'chaim teivim v'sholem. L'chaim v'lebracha. L'chaim. L'chaim. We want Mashiach now. We want Mashiach now.